I am really happy to have Darrell Sutherland, the founder and CEO of Dylan Aerospace in Auburn, Washington. They are a tier one supplier for Boeing and other aerospace companies. He's also an investor and a professional mentor, and I'm looking forward to hearing more about what that entails. In today's interview, we're going to focus on two different things. We're going to talk about reshoring and mentoring. And from doing some preparation with Darrell, he sort of enlightened me how these two things are very intertwined. So just to get started, Darrell, tell us what Dylan Aerospace is in a couple sentences, and give us your story. You've got quite a story, and we'll have to stick to the highlights. So take it away. What is Dylan Aerospace?
Yeah, well, I first want to just thank you for having me out on your podcast, Noah. It's always fun to be able to get out and have a conversation about, in many ways, how people show up in the world, how I show up in the world, the things that really just get me excited and get me out of bed every day. And I can say for many, many years, getting out of bed was really hard.
Hey, Darrell. Back up a little bit. You're getting a little distortion. Maybe just back up. Too close? Yeah. I don't know. All right, try that again. Tell me about getting out of bed.
All right, let's try that.
Yeah.
How's that?
I think it's better. Keep going. So you were saying getting out of bed was not very easy in the morning.
Yeah. For many years, just the idea of getting out of bed and rolling out and kind of doing the same thing over and over again was a very painful experience for many years. And I decided at some point that the idea of being not happy in life, even though I was doing the things that I liked, I just couldn't figure out what was going on in my life that was really not allowing me to not just exist, but to really live. And it took me quite a few years to really discover this, and it certainly didn't happen on my own. I had to go back to the days of growing up in, being a fat, bullied, red-haired, buck-tooth, sort of red-headed stepchild. And unfortunately, I actually am red-headed, a little grayer these days, but grew up that Danny Partridge, crazy curly red hair kid, and took a lot of crap for just being bullied and that type of thing for things that I had no control over. And what it does as a young person is that in many ways, not that I want to see kids getting bullied, but it helps prepare you for life. And I go back to the days of realizing that I'm doing things that don't excite me, that don't fire me up and get me out of bed every day, even though you had to keep the grind going. And fortunately, I had a mother that understood I had a lot of energy and put me into martial arts. And that's when I really developed this passion for learning new things, but really teaching and educating people. And I really kind of found my lane, I believe, in being able to deconstruct ideas and concepts and synthesize them into individuals' unique abilities.
And that was when you were really young.
This is back when I was 12, 13 years old, and then started progressing through the belts and really took a real hard passion for Taekwondo in the martial arts. And I think that was really the foundation of me trying to understand who I am, but kind of the value I can put into the world. And because again, like in anything, when you start to, when you have a lot of failures and then you get results in something, obviously, and you get accolades and, the attention's on you, it automatically kicks off this amazing chemical system we have built into our bodies. And you start getting some attention, and you start putting energy into the things that you're getting good positive attention, instead of getting in trouble for all the things that I used to do.
Sure.
And I think that really kicked off this idea of me being able to help people and, like I said, deconstruct sort of how things worked in the world and be able to describe them at pretty much at any level for anybody. And that was sort of a superpower that I did realize when I was young, but I didn't really know how to use it effectively. Mm-hmm. And so, as you go through the years, I always like to build things. I actually came out to and was born in the Seattle, Washington area, which is, Boeing Mecca, and was headquartered here for many decades, because my grandfather actually worked for Boeing back in Wichita, Kansas, and then he was transferred out here and worked and ran one of the 737 lines back in the day. And so he retired 35 years from Boeing. And then my dad worked at Boeing as well for, I think, about 10-year stint. And the kind of the funny thing is, now looking back, is he was one of the individuals that was laid off back in the late 60s, early 70s, when they literally had a billboard in Washington State said, "Last one out, turn the lights off." And he told me, "Don't you ever be a Boeing number." Like, put the finger in the chest kind of thing. Everybody worked for Boeing in this part of the world. And when that
Darrell,
happened,
turn the gain down a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. Here, let's try that. Is that any better?
Maybe. Anyways.
Still having trouble?
Sometimes it's like a distortion.
Yeah, well, maybe it's just me projecting and talking a little too loud.
This is okay.
Right.
Okay, so your dad said, "I never want you to be a number working at Boeing."
Yeah, don't ever be a number. And so, and living in this part of the world, like I said, this is Boeing Mecca. So this is where the aerospace giant and all the subsidiaries really came from. And so everybody around me worked for Boeing in some way or was attached to. And so I was always a person that liked working with my hands. I never fit into the traditional school education model. That was a very painful experience for me for all the years I was in school, because I'm just wired differently. I'm very visual. I'm very pattern oriented. I would say, again, that's one of my superpowers, is like being able to really dissect and synthesize, taking a lot of data, a lot of information, and being able to identify how it affects markets and people. And so, again, that's kind of been my superpower over the years.
I like that you say that you have a superpower. I think a lot of people don't have that kind of swag to refer to their own talents as a superpower.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you,
that's interesting to me.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because if you would ask me that 7-8 years ago, let's say 10 years ago, I would not have known how to articulate it or describe really what it is that I do and can do today. Mm-hmm. And it took me a lot of years. I'm 52 just a couple weeks ago, and it took me many decades to essentially figure out how to get out of my own way. In fact, it took tens of thousands of dollars and many decades to figure out how to get out of my own way, investing in very high level mentors, coaches, people that could really make an impact in my life. And I think that was really the turning point for me, to not only become much more successful, if you will, in the business world, but really start dissecting and creating tools that could help me be successful in all aspects of my life. Mm-hmm. In this world, the system teaches you, go make a pile of money and go spend it to impress people that you don't really like, right? There's some funny cliche or saying about that out there. And and I followed that path. We did pretty well financially for a lot of years. Built a company that in our world is pretty tough to do, to run completely autonomous, and gave me the ability.
Dylan Aerospace.
Correct, Dylan. Yeah, Dylan, man. And that gave me the ability to essentially take 10 years off plus from running day-to-day operations to actually be around and raise my kids.
So you were very successful.
Yeah, and what's so interesting is that, but I never really understood, like, you have this idea, this vision, this thing that you want to go do, and you just put your head down and get to work, and then you accomplish these things. And then once you get there, you just drive right through it onto the next thing. And unfortunately for most of us that have developed any level of whatever, in air quotes, the concept of success out there, is that you're there's a lot of cliches around this stuff, but it's like the success is really always about the journey. It's never getting the thing. In this world, we have this concept about, again, making a bunch of money and then just spending it, right? So basically income streams and recreating. And one of the things I learned when I started developing tools to fix and change my own life was that I wanted to look at what the world was doing and teaching, and I wanted to do the opposite. Because I've always found that if everybody's already moving a certain direction, it's probably either time to shift or change, or recognize that everybody's just following the herd, and the direction has already changed, maybe a year, maybe 2 years previous, and the world is now catching up to that idea, as opposed to being ahead of the curve, if you will. And quite honestly, through all the pains and struggles I went through with food and alcohol addictions, drove me to gaining over 100 pounds and really having a tough time.
So you were successful, and then when did you get addicted to alcohol and
well, I mean, that was, the idea of, again, what's the idea of success?
Okay. All right. So the business was doing real well. And was that when you also got into alcohol and food? It sounds
yeah,
funny.
I'd always been a drinker and eater, if you will. But I think what happens is the stress and pain of just life in general, right? The things that you either are focused on, which is income and success, as opposed to focusing on the things that really matter and that are critical, which is your health and relationships.
Okay.
And so recognizing that back in, I know very clearly, it was November of 2009, which was really the turning point for me, being, like I said, well over 100 pounds overweight. And I just literally decided I can't live this way anymore. I had really, really amazing people in my life saying, what good is all the success if you're going to basically, kill yourself because of the abuse that the abuse on your body and your mind. And so you better get your crap together. And so spent that year realizing that, hey, first things first is I just need to get up every single day and start working out, and then I'll put metrics around it. So it's interesting because you could go and, in the aerospace manufacturing world, we've been, we have the whole Deming's model of continuous improvement, then, turned into Kaizen. And we had this Kaizen concept kind of jammed down our throat for decades in the manufacturing world. And of course, we implemented those things with our AS9100 and, the various other certifications and classes of, or levels, if you will, of certification that you have to play in the precision manufacturing world. And I realized that these are all, very systematic things that they don't just apply to business. What if we could apply them to our life? And this is where I started creating this concept of what I call today live in Kaizen, which is taking the Kaizen principles from the original Deming model and applying the Kaizen principles to my health and relationships.
What are the Kaizen principles?
Well, in simple terms, the Kaizen model was about making very small incremental changes in a
Darrell,
process.
I'm sorry, I keep being nitpicky about it. Do you have the microphone like really close to your
No,
face?
it's actually like 2.5, 2 feet from my face.
That's weird. Okay. Uh, it's
Yeah.
like weird. Like sometimes it sounds like distortion and sometimes it doesn't. Um, hmm. Okay. Well, uh,
Yeah, like I said, I think maybe I'm gonna turn the gain like all the way off.
yeah, turn the gain down and
Let's try
also,
that. See how that works.
yeah,
How does that sound?
I think it's better.
Okay,
Um,
we'll go ahead and try that. So essentially, the Kaizen model, and again, I'm just going to break it down in really tiny, simple terms, is take anything that you want to analyze and break it down to its root,
mm-hmm.
and then start making small incremental changes at whatever lowest level you can, and then start analyzing the result at that low level.
Okay.
Then as you start creating and seeing the improvement, number one, when you're doing it yourself, you start realizing individual things about your own self, your life, that you may have never looked at before, because you're really starting to get granular. You're really getting down into the roots of what the real challenge or issue is. You know, there's you ever heard of Simon Sinek? Simon
Uh-uh.
Sinek? Well, he
No.
does this thing. He's the so-called why guy today, you know, for the last 10 years or whatever. But, you know, the whole concepts of what he talks about was really created back in Japan. And it's really the concept of the 5 whys. And essentially, if you just ask anybody a question and they give you a surface level answer, and then you ask them another level of why of that same thing, and another level. By the time you get down to, you know, 4, 5, 6, 7 whys deep, you're now starting to get down to the really root about why somebody's doing something, or why they're not doing something. And so the idea is simply, how do we break it all the way down to the smallest piece that we can really put a metric around, and start making simple changes there. And then once you get once you improve that process, how do we then, you know, step back and we start implementing in other areas, manage the result. And so what I started doing is realizing that if I could go into my health and break it down into, you know, like 4 main components, and how would I look at my health? And what we did is I created this a simple way to look at it, ESPN, for a simple acronym: emotional, your sleep, physical, and nutritional health. And so I would break it down into those small components, start looking at my emotional health. How can I start making changes in that particular place? And so by breaking these things down to these deep levels, I could start really, what it does is it turns your brain on, your reticular activating system, into start formulating, asking questions and answering questions. Like your brain has to answer the question. And so by doing this, you start getting really unique results. And all of a sudden, where I'm starting making small changes all over in these 4 areas of health, changes in my relationships, they started dramatically overlapping, and I started getting exponential results in other areas of my life. And so what happened is instead of focusing on income and recreation and stuff, I focused on health and relationships. And what magically happened is the income, the stuff, the travel, the recreation all came as a byproduct of now creating amazing health and amazing relationships.
Very
And so
interesting.
basically took this idea of living Kaizen, pulled it out of the manufacturing, and stuffed it into my personal life, and got insane results.
Is that the thing that Lexus uses? Like that they're famous
Yeah, that's the
for?
Toyota manufacturing model, right? That's how
Okay.
Toyota actually became a world power. And the you know, if you'll read in my book soon, it's coming out soon, where I describe that model and what Toyota did a bit to try to put a frame around what the Kaizen concept, and then what my version of the Kaizen concept, what we call living Kaizen, really can do for individuals if they're willing to, you know, if you're ready to start making some changes, and you know, you want to get some
Yeah.
different results. We can help people get results quickly, because I understand this idea about how to break things down to the root, start making small incremental changes, cross them over into other areas of lanes of life, and it's been magical. Like it's really, really interesting. And so, like I said, I started to do this back in November of 2009. created this tool. In 6 weeks, or excuse me, 6 months, I lost 66 pounds.
Wow.
And completely changed my life from that point. Quit drinking, stopped drinking beer, which was a big thing in my life back then. And here I'm now 11, whatever it's been, 11 years without a beer. Don't get me wrong, I like a whiskey and a wine once in a while, but
no beer.
Well, that stuff just doesn't control me anymore. And that's really the key here is knowing what you want out of life and what you're willing to do to go get it.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so one of the things that one of the trends you're seeing, it seems like, is the reshoring and things coming back here. What are you seeing, and what are the keys to making this happen?
That's actually a really good question. It's something I talk about a lot these days, is this concept of being prepared for the reshoring. Now, we just have experienced...
Why is it happening? Is it because China isn't doing a good job and we can do it more efficiently here now, or supply chain's bad? Why is it happening? All of those things.
Yeah, well, as we've just all experienced here in this recent COVID-19 world that we all have been succumbed to, I think it's probably one of the greatest times to be in manufacturing and start a manufacturing company and or explode your manufacturing company right now, because there's enough people that recognize and have just experienced the pain that the powers that be, once they decided to start offshoring all of this super talent of manufacturing people and the parts and processes, the United States we put ourselves in a terrible position from a national security level to just infrastructure level. And so, I've seen this coming now for years. And so a couple of years ago, we started this initiative called I Love MFG, and all the tools that we're building behind the scenes was really 2020 was going to be a big launch for us this year. We wanted to start the new decade out and bring a lot of these products and these ideas to the manufacturing world, because it's so critical now for us to be prepared for the reshoring of this work. And I'm telling you, we're in this COVID. We're coming out of it now. But I'm telling you, the next 5 years in manufacturing is going to be something like we've never seen.
So you think in a way the COVID is accelerating this? Is that
that's what it seems like? I absolutely believe it will. Absolutely, yeah. Because I mean, look what we just experienced. And when you get to this level where we're reliant on, again, there's certain places for certain products to be built globally. That's fine, right? But when it comes to precision, the things, we started this I Love MFG model. The MFG doesn't stand for manufacturing. It actually stands for moving, feeding, and guarding America and the world, of course. And it's to get people to realize how critical manufacturing is in the United States. Today, kids have no concept. They just, you literally order it online and the store, delivers it to your house, right? I mean, there's no connection between somebody taking these amazing skill sets, talents, and an idea comes out of your mind into some type of computer system, into some type of process, manufacturing gear, and then this physical product spits out the other end. I mean, nobody these days, and I'm saying nobody, kids coming out of these education model has any idea about how anything manufacturing even works, or would even have a place to start.
You mean they don't have an idea of the big picture?
Yeah, there's no big picture. There's no small picture. They get on an airplane to travel. They drive a car. They have a certain iPhone or Android device, and no concept about how any of this stuff actually comes to be. Sure. And like I said, I think today with this idea of reshoring, I mean, if nothing else, I'm going to drive the hell out of this message because it's too critical for all of us in the United States to finally pull our heads out and realize that we are so critical to the infrastructure of the United States and the world for that matter. But we need to get back to not just being in a country of ideas and then farm out the physical components of it, but let's be a country of amazing ideas and develop amazing talent that can build those products on our own shores to make sure we're taken care of first and being the leader out there in the world. And then fine, yeah, we can still farm things all over the world. That's fine. It's wonderful to be able to go to other countries and help them level up their worlds because we do develop and build the best technology in the world still in the United States. So it's time for kids to get their minds opened up, and a lot of people that have been displaced into all kinds of different jobs. You know, one of the key things that I thought was very interesting is nobody talks about manufacturing anymore, especially precision manufacturing. Yet we were some of the few companies, businesses, organizations that weren't shut down through this because we're deemed as necessary.
Yeah, interesting.
Yet nobody knows we exist, right?
And they still don't really.
Yeah, we're like an underground market.
We talk a lot about in this podcast about the skills gap. I'm kind of tired of it, to be honest. But what you told me when we were prepping for this interview, you said that it seems like lots of people stumble into manufacturing.
Yeah.
And then after they stumble into manufacturing, it's like, where do we go from here? So please flesh that out a little bit.
Yeah, that's really a fun topic, actually. We used to say, you could fall off a bar stool somewhere and get a job at a manufacturing company, and it just blows me away because you walk into, like our facility, we got the best technology on the planet, 5-axis probe with cell systems and all the best software and amazing talented people, and we're a small company, but
how small are you, or big are you?
We invest. What? I'm sorry.
How big is your company? Give us a picture.
On the floor, we have about 30 folks.
Okay.
Total, and we have a software company we're building for add-on tools in the manufacturing space and a host of others. So we have a couple of really high-end engineers I hired out of the University of Washington that are not on our floor. They're remote in Washington, and we're building some really cool tools to help grow manufacturing companies and help people from an education model how to engage in manufacturing, but more importantly, how to capture data from really talented people, data and information from really talented people, so you can capture standard operating procedures. And
let's go back to the stumble. Let's go back to the stumble.
Sorry, I know we get sidetracked a little bit, but the stumble of people coming into the space, and then they come in and they really don't know what to do. And again, that's much of the training that we're building is how do we turn people into professional manufacturing people? Like that's our sole focus. And so we built a whole model out about what I call the Pro 11, which is a series of taking these people that are, as you define, stumbled into the space, and let's help analyze who they are, how they're hardwired from birth, and then how they've been soft-wired from their community, and let's turn them into and find a lane for them in the manufacturing space. And I can let me give you a quick example of an individual that's in our organization that's he's a total badass. So I always like to talk about him. In fact, when we won the Company of the Year at the Pacific Northwest Aerospace Alliance in 2018, my accepted speech for our organization, we actually shot a couple-minute video about this individual because it's some of the things that we're doing to really make an impact in the aerospace and defense world is training talent, and not just training talent, but discovering talent. So we have an individual, Georgie, He's one of our super talents, and we actually hired him in as a driver. Now he was hired in from the team, and I would come down and I'm like, man, who is that guy? He's got all this energy and he's always fired up and excited and he hustles everywhere, and and over the next couple of years, the guy just had the right attitude, the right energy, and I'd come back and I was doing a real deep dive and interviewing all of our team to really figure out, as I was building some new tools and training into our organization, really discovering everybody's unique ability. Like, what is the thing that these individuals, and how can we not go find talent per se, but how do we discover the talent that's already under our roof? And I mean, this has just been a total game changer for us. And so we hired Georgie in as a driver. And, as I was talking to him one late evening, he was telling me that he has a CAD degree in SolidWorks. I'm like, you do realize you work at an aerospace company, right? And so we, joke back and forth, and I was like, man, this kid's just like super talented. I could see it in his communication. And
you could see it already. You could just see it in him before he even told you that he knew CAD.
He had an amazing, and always had an amazing attitude, go-getter attitude from day one. And that's always the people I'm looking for.
But why didn't he ever tell you?
That's a really good question. He did answer that at one point. He's like, I just didn't know how it would fit into our ongoing operation of how we process things and so forth. And I'll tell you, there's a new sheriff in town and things are going to change. And so I went through this discovery process of really trying to find and understand our individual team's unique abilities, and then realign them in our organization based on what they're naturally wired to do. And so what we ended up doing, and Georgie just loves solid modeling and the engineering and crafting and solving problems and that type of thing. And so we bought a 3D printer, and he started basically building tooling and a variety of interesting things for us. And he just absolutely is magical at it. Like, it's his space that he lives in. And, eventually he's really become a tremendous addition in our engineering and tooling department when it comes to 3D printing tools and solving problems. And so it's been a real treat over the last about 3.5 years now, where we're to the tune of where we actually invested probably about $20,000 into gutting out a complete office space and turning it into a robotics and 3D printing lab. And so we have 2 cobot robots in there and multiple 3D printers in this particular space. And the whole purpose of this was to develop a program to take people that really have a passion for creation and development and design and things of that nature, and start exposing them in a way that makes manufacturing cool, right? So if we could get individuals to come in and see how the 3D printing, how you could take an idea out of your head and model it up, and in a couple hours you could walk away with this thing in your hand. It was pretty amazing.
Wow. Okay, so one of the main things, I mean, you touched on it a little bit earlier, is mentoring. Mentoring for you, mentoring for, I'm assuming mentoring for young people. Now, how do you find the right mentor, and how do you go about choosing the right mentor? How does this whole process work? That's something that I've always wondered, and I've often thought about, wouldn't it be great if I did have a mentor? I mean, I think in a way my father has been my mentor, but I think it's important to have other influences.
No question.
We have so many resources today with books and podcasts and videos or whatever, but there really isn't a substitute for a mentor. So give me how that works, and elaborate on that,
Yeah.
please.
Yeah, that's a great question. Because again, for me, that was the concept of mentorship was the complete game changer for me. Okay, because there's all kinds of cliches again around it, but I think the simplest one is you don't know what you don't know. You can't see your own blind spots, so you don't know how to fix them. Because if you knew how to fix them, you would fix them, right? And so
Maybe.
I think
Maybe.
yeah, true.
Maybe you just decide to go home and watch TV and distract yourself and drink and not fix them. But
yeah, there's no question. That's unfortunately that's the way a lot of people choose to live their lives. But
most.
The people that are listening to this podcast don't live that way. So we'll assume everybody that's listening to this wants to at least because they're putting time and energy into listening to a couple knuckleheads sit here and talk about life, right?
Yeah. So anyways, I'll stop interrupting you. Give me please keep going about mentors.
Yeah, I think the idea of having a mentor in your life, I think if anybody was just a lot of ways, the simple analogies are, if you played sports, or if you were a musician, or you went on backpacking trips, or in some way, some level, somehow, you absolutely have to have a guide in your life. And that guide, you're never going to have one guide that's going to do everything for you in your life, right? You had mentioned that your father was your mentor. Of course, like that's it's kind of a no-brainer. Whether all the experiences were good or bad is regardless, right? I mean, you had somebody in your life that helped guided you down a path, and at the end of the day, they did the best they knew how, right? And so you have to take that approach to having mentors in all aspects of your life. The very first thing you have to do at any given level is understand what it is that you want, right? I mean, in simple terms, you're not going to if I haven't figured out that I want to go and be a pro golfer, and I decided I'm going to go get an archery expert to teach me how to shoot a bow, that certainly isn't going to help me learn how to swing a golf club, right?
Yeah.
So the idea is you got to figure out what it is that you want before you can decide who's going to help you.
All right. Well, where do you find this mentor? I'm looking for the dream mentor.
Yeah, I mean that's the $1 million question, right? It takes time to go through some. What I started doing is joining different mastermind groups and asking people, who do you work with? And that's kind of where I started.
So what's a mastermind group?
Yeah, and I mean today you can Google, and there's hundreds or thousands of mastermind groups. There's all kinds of Facebook groups, and that's why I said is if you can decide the kind of path that you want to go down right now in your life, I'll tell you, you'll find a mastermind group, and you'll find a group of people that can help you take that next step and move to that next step. The chances of an individual finding a mentor and that mentor is going to be their mentor for the rest of your life is pretty slim until you really know what you want. Now, if you're fortunate to have those people in your life, for me, it took me, probably 6-7 years to actually find a couple people that I would consistently trust and believe in, because they actually had gone to the place I want to go before I have, meaning they've actually done what it is that I want to do, which is really key here, because I'm so sick of all these bullshit. Excuse me, but is nonsense.
No, we're an explicit podcast. You can.
Yeah, all the bullshit Facebook. Hey, I went out and took a weekend seminar, and now I'm a life coach. That nonsense. And don't get me wrong, you have to start somewhere. But what happens is now somebody's got a certification. Again, that's in air quotes. They have their 1 day or 2 day weekend certification, and now there's some super guru. It's going to help you with all your life problems. And they take a bunch of your money, and they basically give very highly paid mentors and consultants like myself a bad name, because these people have not actually done what they say that they're trying to help other people do. So that's sort of a big warning out there, is to be careful about these weekend certified coaches, right? So figure out when you're looking for a mentor, be very, very clear on the criteria that they've actually, number one, that they've actually done it themselves. The thing that you want to go do, make sure they've done it. Number two, make sure they aren't taking people's money, saying and doing something that they have never done, and if they don't have lawsuits and a whole host of other, you can find out about people on social media pretty quick and get a pretty decent idea. Yeah. It's not to say that we don't all have haters. It's just to say that you can find out about people very quickly. So
do people pay you? Do people pay you to be their mentor?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been doing and building a consulting kind of model. The challenge is you start out in a certain place, and I basically only work with essentially high-level business owners and executives, and high-level athletes as well, for that matter. But I prefer to work with people that have got a little life on them. They've built the business and got the crap beat out of them, or went sideways, but they're still fighting and they're still in the game, right? Mm-hmm. I generally don't like to. I shouldn't say this. We're building a whole program around people starting out. In fact, it's called Life Apprenticeship. You can go to lifeapprenticeship.com and kind of see that whole model that we're building there. But that's for people that are kind of starting out in life. It's really targeted from 18 to 30-year-olds is kind of that model. Yet the whole model, really everybody should go through this program, because what we're doing is we're going to expose what I call the Pro 11, which is the 11 key points. And then this applies to everybody, which, I'm not going to go into it right now because we're kind of gone long here already. But people can go to Life Apprenticeship and, you can kind of get started, and we'll do. I'm glad you brought it up, because I'm asked that a lot. How do you find a great mentor? I think we'll do a whole training podcast on how to go about doing that, and how to sniff out people that are worth their salt. Because I know it took me, but the simple terms is, like we had talked about before we started the podcast here, is I started out reading books and listening to some of the great personal development people, like, Tony Robbins and Brian Tracy. And I mean, I can go down the list of, there's a lot of young bloods out there that have done a great job as well. But I started listening to Tony Robbins back like 30 some odd years ago. And
I used to listen to Tony in the car when I was like growing up, because my dad was all up on him. Yeah. Well,
here's the key though. Here's the big key. I didn't just listen to him. I actually implemented what he taught, right?
Sure.
And when you implement, that's the key here, is like a lot of us, we become so used to just consuming tons of content over and over and over again. Like we were talking about earlier, I listen to a lot of podcasts. And you get those nuggets that are golden, but at the end of the day, it's like, I got the nugget, but now what am I going to go do with it?
Yeah.
Like I got a tremendous amount of nuggets and information. So I think for most people, you have to go through this process of really understanding what it is that you want, and then recognizing what your resources are, recognizing, here, I'm just going to run through my Pro 11 really quick. All right. Cause it's just 11 points.
Okay.
Number one is you got to develop a vision. You absolutely have to know and understand what it is that you want. Like, it's got to be crystal clear.
What if you don't know what you want?
You got to start. And what I say is that.
What if what you want is impossible?
I'm sorry?
What if what you want is not attainable at this point in your life?
Well, I would say to an individual that you better pick something, because if you have nothing to drive your life towards, you're going to have a miserable existence on this planet. Now, again, the beautiful thing is that when I say talk about a vision, it doesn't have to be financial per se. It could be in your health, in your relationships, what type of recreation, what type of wealth do you want to create? Do you want to be a great philanthropist? Right? I mean, there's so many different ways. And what we do in this model is we break down what I call our Living Kaizen model, which is health, relationship, recreation, and wealth. And when you drive through these ideas, what it does is it gives you a framework to go develop your vision for yourself in all these areas. And so in simple terms, like, hey, every day, if I don't have enough energy to do whatever it is that I'm trying to do, maybe I'm just trying to exist and learn some new things, yet I don't have enough energy. Well, I better figure out what's going on with my health. So you can break it down into these micro things that, as long as I'm doing something to help improve my life, I'm growing. I'm actually on the path.
Yeah.
So figure out how you can go develop little wins in your life every day, right? Number two, you got to go get and understand what your resources are. Like all of us in the United States have amazing resources. What are your resources? Time, money, people, and ideas. If you don't have time, I would argue we all have the same 24/7. It is the ultimate equalizer. You're wasting your time. We need to carve out time to go get some things done. Number two, money. If you don't have money, go get another job. You can go make money on the internet right now. Nobody in the United States has an excuse to be broke anymore, because you can go on the internet, learn tools right now, take instantaneously, whether it's you have to be on the front facing of the camera or the back facing of the camera, doesn't matter. You don't have to be in front of people. There's tools, there's opportunities, there's ways legally and effectively to go add value into a market, and you can do it basically all for free today. It's insane what you can do with YouTube and a few resources. So time, we all have 24/7 equalizer. Money, there's no excuse anymore. When it comes down to people, I call it people is just a simple example for human capital. Everybody has somebody in their life that they can figure out how to level up their game. If they don't, start going to a gym, find some trainers, start going to meetup groups in your local area for business networking. Find a Vistage group locally. There's all kinds of ways, you can Google it to figure out how to connect with people to start changing your ideas or start giving you new ideas on how to go out and show up in the world. And the last piece is ideas. Ideas is, I say ideas, but it's really, intellectual property. And what I mean by intellectual property for an individual is your idea is worth protecting. So what is it that you see in the market that needs to be fixed? And that may be the vision that you're setting out. If you see injustices, how do you fix the injustices? It's not going out into the streets and smashing windows and being a thug. Okay, that's craziness, right?
Yeah.
If you have an opinion, if you have an idea, put some solutions together and take it to the world. Don't go out and put people down. Let's lift people up, right? But that's your ideas, right? Number three is you got to go out and find out what's the game, what's the real game out in the marketplace. And again, I break all this stuff down, in our programs on understanding what the economic game is that you're a part of. Because if you don't understand the economic game in the United States, meaning I'm not saying you got to go be a CPA, but you should understand how the tax code affects you, right? Robert Kiyosaki has a great book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I don't know if you've ever read that.
I know of it. I might have started it. Yeah.
But in simple terms, and whether you read the book or not, is irrelevant at this point. But he does touch a simple idea in there that everybody should understand. There's 4 ways to interact with an economic system. Number 1 is as an employee. Number 2 as a self-employed person. Number 3 as a business owner, and the 4th is as an investor. And all 4 of those pieces have you interacting with the tax code at different levels. If you're an employee, hear this. This is really important. And again, whether it's plus or minus 5%, I don't want to get this, the nitpicky, fact-finding nonsensical. Okay, but I heard this from a very high-level CPA investor out there, which is actually one of Kiyosaki's, is only 5% of the tax code touches W-2 earners. So if you have a job, you really only get to tap into about 5% of the whole tax code. So think about that.
What does that mean?
Meaning that all of the tax code is just laws written by Congress or passed by Congress, written and passed, that allow individuals to develop enterprise that creates income, that creates a tax base, that creates jobs, that drives the economy. Okay? So if you don't know how to interact with your own tax code, which again, we don't teach this in the education system. So when you come out of school and you have your diplomas at whatever level and you enter the job market and now you're a W-2 earner, wage earner, know that you only get to really tap into about 5% of the whole tax code. And if you're a business owner, you now can step that up to somewhere, again, depending on who you ask, somewhere between 40 and 50%. If you go into a business owner, or you're self-employed, 40, 50%. If you're a business owner, you get tap into a little more. If you're an investor, you get to tap into basically the whole tax code, because as an investor, you can, anyways, and get into all the depth of that. But it's imperative for people to understand the game. The game is, in the United States, is the economic system.
Right,
and if you don't understand how to interact with the economic system and tax code, then it becomes a very, very painful experience. So,
Darrell, I have two other questions, and I'm sure you could opine on them in great detail, but I'm looking for a brief answer.
Sure.
So everybody knows Boeing is in the total house of pain right now from lots of factors.
Sure.
How is that affecting you, and what do you what's going to happen tomorrow? Or would you be, Nostradamus if you could tell me that?
Yeah, I think you just nailed your last few words there. Like, you're asking me the crystal ball, right? Number one, I can't speak to the internal workings or.
You must know something that we don't know.
Yeah, but there's also things that I can't talk about either, right? And so
sure.
I'll tell you our approach, which I think everybody needs to have the same approach, which is, COVID was just this excuse to trash our economy or take our economy down, okay? Or however you want to frame that. But bottom line is COVID was just the thing at this point that tanked our economy, okay? So, and I've started my first company when I was 19, so I'm 52. So do the math, that's a lot of years, right? Mm-hmm. And I've been an active participant in building my business for literally 33 years, and working on myself, working on business, working on tax code. So looking at and building a company in this type of environment, which again just ends up being the economic machine that we're a part of, is that you're going to have ebb and flow of business. You're going to have these cycles that happen. And I've been through, basically two major cycles already, 9/11, and then of course the housing crisis of 08, 09. And 9/11, we weren't prepared officially for that, but I just hustled. And so I went out and, I think we only had 7 people at the time back then, and we were fresh, really kind of just getting things going from that standpoint of hiring people, that many people. And so I went out and hustled. And so then when we had the next, downturn in 08, 09, we were a little more prepared, and we sustained through that. And so, you start to learn over time is like, you have to have contingency plans. And so in our model right now, fortunately, we were not just on the commercial aerospace side, but we had defense work and we had other work that has been, our savior in this whole model. And so
it wasn't all,
I would
your
say
eggs weren't all in that basket. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you think about when you're in the aerospace model, is that a direct supplier to like Boeing as an example, is that you're working with, potentially hundreds or even thousands of small companies inside Boeing, right?
Yeah.
It's not, because every airframe is like their own business model. And so you have to be diversified, at some level. And I'm not saying, diversified necessarily outside of aerospace. I'm saying under the umbrella of precision manufacturing, you definitely have to be aligned into various areas. And I can tell you, we learned some things from this round, which is we have been talking about getting into medical devices and things of that nature for a number of years, and the aerospace thing, we've just been exploding, and so it's like we'll look at doing that, but where are we going to, we don't have open capacity to do it, and so and again, so now it's something that we're going to take a really hard look at of exploring new avenues in other qualified precision manufacturing work that would give us another safety net, if you will, still utilizing the skills and talents of the people that we have.
Yeah, it seems like you have a very glass half full way of looking at it, but you're not really. It seems like you don't really have anything you can say about, whether you think Boeing is going to right the ship in the near future or whether they're screwed for a while.
I can speculate, right?
Okay.
I mean,
can you speculate on the record?
Yeah, I'll speculate. I mean, I think that I don't think at various levels, I don't think the government's going to allow Boeing to fail.
Uh-huh.
I don't think the shareholders are going to allow Boeing to fail. By this last, where they raised $25 billion like overnight through a bond program. So I don't see Boeing going anywhere. I see, again, I've been in this over 30 years. I've seen a lot of really ugliness happen at various levels in many companies. And so Boeing is in my opinion, they're it. Like, they're the top level. They have the best people, the best technology. They're really something else when it comes to, engineering, developing. Now, people inside the machine may argue differently, but I'll tell you this: I'm pro Boeing, like, all the way, and not because we're just a supply chain, but because of the talented people they have, their ability to develop and acquire unbelievable technology, their ability to be diversified in so many different lanes. I think Boeing's going to be just fine. I think this is a very painful hiccup, and who knows how long it's going to take. I think when the governors allow us to turn the economy back on, like in the state of Washington, our governor still got us locked down, which is just nonsense. Because again, I think it's political. I don't think it's facts based. So that's my take on it.
Great. That's very interesting. And one more question. What's something really interesting that you learned in the last week? Something new.
Something new in the last week. Give yourself some room to breathe.
Mm-hmm. And what inspired that for you to learn that?
I go through phases. I run really hard in life. Like, I mean, you get one go around, right? That's it.
Yeah.
And I don't think people that are wired like me, that run really hard, as hard as we run, as long as we run, spend enough time like relaxing and just taking it all in, time to breathe.
See, I'm really good at that.
I'm sorry?
I'm really good at the relaxing part.
Yeah. Well, I've become really good at it, but I think I'm glad you asked that question, because, it's something that I was just talking to my wife and my daughter about this last week, and is I go in sprints, right? And so I just came off this 90-day at-home workout training program, right? Because you can't go to the gyms and all that. So, and I just finished up last week, and amazing results. And so what I did this last week is, when I finished that, I said, I'm not going to jump right into another program. I'm going to take a week, and every day I've just gone out and hiked around our property. Nice. Which we have a 3rd-mile loop trail into the woods, and I'll hike sometimes 8 miles, and sometimes I'll hike 6 miles, 3 miles.
You get out of your paradigm. It's refreshing. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, I go out and connect with the nature, but what it does is it gives such an amazing reset ability, because you're really shifting up that motion that you put in place for, like I've had for 90 days, right? Running hard every day, scheduled out, lots of Zoom calls, training, developing. We're building all kinds of tools. I'm writing books. We're creating the software. Lots of stuff going on. I'm spinning lots of plates.
Making podcasts, spending hours with podcast hosts.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, and enjoying every second of it, right? And so, like I said, I guess to close, is you get one go around, run hard to go get what you want, and take some time to smell the roses along the way.
Thank you so much, Darrell.
Appreciate this.
It's been really interesting. It's given me a lot of food for thought. Sure, we could talk a lot about. I'm constantly working through some of these things, worrying about the life going by and not, like
living. Yeah.
Well, every night I have a journal. I want to keep a diary of what happened that day, just so it's not lost, right? Because
sure.
the weeks just go by and you go, what the hell did I do that last week? What? It's been 6 months. What did I do for 6 months? And then,
right.
At least makes me feel like it counts. But yeah, I don't know. I should check out your stuff, and I feel like I've got some upward momentum, but I don't know. It seems like you've I don't know, still working on it.
Yeah. Well, you and your audience can really simply go to, if they want to see more about me, you can go to my personal webpage at darrellasutherland.com. If you want to check out some of the tools that we're putting together that can really make a significant. In fact, for your audience here, man, we'll give away the what we call My Toys, which is this amazing 17-page PDF that will give you a really good start to this whole program that they can find at lifeapprenticeship.com.
Lifeapprenticeship.com and Darrells.com. So
yep.
That's where you guys can go. And Darrell, really appreciate it. And I look forward to talking some more